And uh, hello, all. We'll just give everyone a couple minutes to get in the room, and I'll ask you folks to get on board. And it looks like we've hit stability in numbers now. So let's go ahead and get started. Once again, thank you all for joining us the day after a holiday. That tells you how dedicated you all are every day, as we know. Do you want to go ahead and bring up the PowerPoint? I think, Deanna. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Steve Mondrenak. I'm Executive Director here at AFTO. Looking forward to beginning this series of webinars and discussions again with our retail program leaders across the country. As you recall, this is our third year of this series, doing approximately 3 to 4 of these a year, depending on what's going on. And I see we still have a couple folks coming in. So once again, welcome to the call. And if this is your first, we appreciate you joining. For those of you that have been frequent participants, thank you for coming back. Let's go ahead and move to the next slide. Just a few things that I wanted to put in front of your radar screen here coming up. And and I can see Deanna's going to move me to the next slide, but she's looking confused.
Yes. Too many windows opened up over the one to change.
Okay.
And for some reason, I have some text popping up on the window. So let me try this again.
Oh, it looks like it's doing transcribing. Yes, all good. Well, so the couple things we were going to talk to you a little bit about, just remind you of a couple things coming up later this year. First, and you'll see a slide on this in just a second, we of course want to invite you to our 120, I'm gonna do this from memory, 128th, I believe, annual conference, which will be this summer, June of 2024 in Grand Rapids, Michigan. For those of you that haven't been to Grand Rapids is a beautiful location. Deanna and I were just there in late August, and it was a wonderful location. And if you happen to be a microbrew fan, that is one of the 2 places to go in the United States. I think there and Asheville are kind of the 2 capitals of microbreweries, for those of you that know that area well. But it's a pretty awesome city, and I think you all would very much enjoy your time there. Okay, are we able to switch slides now? Oh, hold it. I might be able to. There we go. Okay, good deal. So once again, here are the dates, June 9th through the 12th. I will just note that the lodging rate is very, very reasonable in Grand Rapids, as is also the per diem rates. So I think it'll be a city that's very affordable for many of you to participate in. Moving on to the next slide, there are a handful of training opportunities coming up that we wanted to introduce to you all and let you know. The first one is we have a course coming up, an in-person course coming up January 3rd and 4th, 2024 in Kansas City, Michigan. This is going to be led by Frank Yanis on food safety culture for regulators. For some of you might have seen in the past, Frank has taught a course to Michigan State and also offered a course to a lot of companies across the country. I'm sure most of you know Frank was the Deputy Commissioner of Foods until January, I guess February officially, of 2023 at FDA, previously led food safety at Walmart and Disney, but also has written several books on food safety culture, and really one of the, I would call him the father of food safety culture, and definitely one of the 2 or 3 people that have really led that movement in across the country. But we're very excited to have him leading this workshop. I will note that there is a great difference in cost to that between AFTO members and non-members. So if you aren't a member, your $50 membership fee might be worth it. One other thing to note, this is going to get announced, I believe, officially on Friday. It is going to be an application process first, and then we will select, because we're sort of trying to build a room that has lots of different types of people in the room from the regulatory community, and to make it the most effective workshop possible. We do anticipate this will not be the only time we do this. We're hoping to do this once a year for the foreseeable future. Once again, travel is on your own, and there is a registration fee attached with it. You fairly quickly, at least 90 days in advance, you will be notified if you were selected for the program. And I suspect even a little before that, because I think we'll have a pretty robust response right away. Once again, if you have not seen Frank in teaching mode, I will just put out there that he is an absolute amazing teacher, and everyone that has had the opportunity to do one of these type workshops with him has come back and say it is a life-changing workshop for regulators, along with industry folks. Everyone agrees it is well worth your time. So I'm going to stop on that one, move to a couple other items that we also have coming up. Root cause analysis for retail food safety. Many of your organizations have participated in this over the last couple of years. We do have 2 more courses coming up in 2023, and they are phenomenal. We have great feedback from participants. People really seem to find this valuable. We're also hearing that people are using the skills once after they take the training, and really focusing on ensuring things such as long-term correction and becoming better foodborne illness investigators. Really getting to the why and what the real problem is. This is really how you do a good job of teaching them to that. This is for your more advanced inspection crew, not necessarily for a beginning inspector. So just keep that in mind. The registration on this will be coming out also later this week. So take a look at that if you have some folks that you might be interested in. And there is a small fee associated with it. This is a virtual session, just as a reminder, and takes place over 4 days. So let's move on to the next item on the slides. A new course for us. Some of you might be familiar with the topic of FD 170, which was basic inspections and investigations for new regulators. FDA has taken the FD number off. This course has been redeveloped and went through another round of piloting, and is now being offered as a virtual course. So we will. It is a 20-hour course, really meant for brand new folks that are coming in for manufactured and retail food regulators. There will be some additional information about what's included, but this is really the very, very basic skills that happen. Once again, a virtual course that is going to be offered in December and May of next year. And if we find that we need courses, we'll add more. In addition, we've had several regulatory agencies reach out to us and ask, is it possible to bring this to my state, or possible to do a special virtual event for my state? That is possible, and we can talk a little bit about that. If anyone is interested, just email us at afto@afto.org to learn more. We can also do a train the trainer module, or get you into a train the trainer program so that you can learn how to do this yourself. Or we've actually had some jurisdictions say, can I get one additional instructor to help me teach it that have been through the train the trainer? We can work any of that out if you're interested. So just something to think a little bit about. If you're interested in learning more, we can get you the detailed outline for the course. We've received really good feedback and reviews. We have several states that we're waiting for final FDA sign off to begin teaching this. So I think this is something you might find very valuable for your staffs going forward. Let's move on to the next slide. Inspector Boot Camp is coming back. An advanced inspector boot camp is also coming back. This will again be in January and February of this year. Once again, free to all of our regulatory community. There's going to be 2 changes from it, so I just want you to be aware. The first change is we're only going to offer an afternoon session, a nationwide session. It was one of the pieces of feedback that we heard from both presenters and from some of the facilitators, and also from participants, that they thought that doing the 2 sessions may not be necessary. So we're going to move to 1 session. The other thing is we're going to do a little bit different method of engagement going into 24. So you're going to see some things differently, and fewer facilitated groups, but much more in surveys and chat and that sort of interactions going forward. So we're going to try something a little different based on once again some of the feedback from the participants. We've been seeing up to 3,500 people participate in this over the series. So it's been very good. I will tell you, I had my ultimate feel good at IAFP this this year. And I know that Deanna knows this also. When an inspector from Ottawa, Canada came up to me and said, this was awesome, we've been attending. So it's not just those here in the US that are participating in this course. So in this inspector and advanced inspector boot camp. I also can tell you there's some this year, like every year, we've introduced some new modules to it. One of the new modules coming is really focused on what are those pieces of equipment that you might see in a kitchen that you might not know what they are. As we know, not every inspector comes in having been in a kitchen before, and there's lots of things that aren't necessarily in a home kitchen that you find in a commercial kitchen. We're going to do some of that, and that's actually getting produced right now. And after boot camp, that will be available to all of you if you want to use it for your new inspector training or as an additional education opportunity for your inspectors. With that, next is the advanced boot camp slide, which I always forget. The dates for that are in February. Once again, though, I think it's a great opportunity, and we've had really positive feedback from everyone that has been participating. So just wanted to make sure those things are on your radar. And once again, both inspector and advanced inspector bootcamp are free and available to you thanks to the generous support of FDA. With that, I believe I'm turning it back over. Sorry, I have one more thing to talk about. I apologize, or maybe two more things. One more thing for sure. One other thing that will be announced, and once again, this will be an application course. In other words, you apply to participate, is process improvement for regulators. This is really teaching you some of those lean process skills from that you probably hear about, but maybe aren't as familiar with. So this course is a very, very hands-on course. January 30th will be a virtual session. February 6th to 9th are in person. In addition, after the course, each student completes a project of process improvement project that gets then presented in the fall, in the late fall, early summer, or late summer, early fall. God, I can't talk today. But very, very exciting work to do. I don't know that there's a slide on this, but I'll also tell you in our announcements on Friday, you're also going to see a couple other things, environmental sampling being among those, which is available. But please let us know if you're interested. We do have a handful of jurisdictions that have already put in a request for this year. Once again, like a little bit like the basic inspector and investigations course, there are lots of options for how that might be conducted. But if you have an interest in environmental sampling, drop us an email at afto@afto.org. Lastly, but I don't believe there is a slide, we also will be doing an instructor skills course. Many of you are familiar with that course. Many have participated in that course. That course will be coming up, I believe, I should know this, in March. It is booked now in mid-March, and the course is phenomenal. So I will tell you, everyone that sends a student to that course comes back and said it's a game changer for them, and they really appreciate the ability to do that. So that's another one that will be in that announcement. So one other thing I should allude to, on Friday, you're going to receive a complete announcement of many of these training programs that are coming in this fall and spring of next year. That is your opportunity to really plan what people are going to do. I will say, I suspect seats will go quickly. So particularly for those that are small limit courses, there are several other courses included in that announcement, but please take a look at that when you get it and do your planning very quickly. We wanted to give you all a little pre-information so you could be ready when that comes out on Friday. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Deanna and your wonderful panel of speakers. It's great to see you all here after the holiday, and it's wonderful to have 52 folks come on the day after Labor Day. That's always a good sign that we've got a good topic of interest. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Deanna, and thank you all very much for participating.
All right. Thank you for that update, Steve. I know that was a lot. We've been super busy trying to get all of these courses ready and out to you with the registrations all tidied up. So we can't wait to see y'all at some of these trainings coming up in the next year. So this session today, I want to say this is a by request topic. In the feedback that you guys give, people want to hear about new food technology. So we have put together today a panel of amazing speakers that all have a different perspective on new food tech. So next slide, please, Christina. So first off, we have Travis Edmondson. He's the Chief Development Officer for Pizza Forno. After Travis, we will have Chris Rupert from Compass Group give a short presentation, then followed by Derek Deland of NSF. So we are so excited all three of these guys could join us. Once their presentations are complete, we have time set aside for a Q&A with the panelists. So if you would, please hold all of your questions until the end of the discussion time, or until the end of their presentations, sorry. And then you can ask them all the questions that you have after hearing all this information. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Travis, who's our first presenter today.
Welcome, everybody. I am going to share my screen very quickly, and then there we go. Talk to you a little bit about Pizza Forno. We are a automated pizza vending machine that started almost 19 years ago in France, came to North America about 2019 in Canada, and then has grown into the US starting in like 21, 22. We really believe that everybody has a right to great pizza. We do that through Pizza Forno. We have executives located in Canada and the US. One of our founders has another company that's a leading equipment of other restaurant supplies and equipment, and kind of use that platform to start this out. Right now, we have about 65 units across North America with agreements for over 500 of those, with our first in Mexico opening up in the next couple of weeks. Our founders are William Moyer and Les Tomlin. William really has that deep connection to restaurant equipment with his family and just throughout his life. And then Les is more on the brand building side and marketing side of the business, and they've come together to create this brand. Pizza Forno is a kind of a turnkey, fully automated pizza vending machine that can be indoor or outdoor. It's loaded with up to 70 pizzas, and then takes about 3 minutes or a little less than that for a customer to get a pizza hot and ready to go in a box. I've got a video that's going to show you more about the insides and everything else, so I'm going to go through the slides fairly quickly. There's 3 different formats. There's an ATM style built into a wall, just like a bank ATM, an indoor kiosk that works well in indoor environments such as hospitals, college campuses, office buildings, things like that, and an outdoor unit that's freestanding and sits outdoor in most environments. It holds 70 pizzas we talked about. It's got a 32-inch touchscreen on the front where customers order, or they can do it by the app. And then the system transfers the pizzas from the refrigerated section over to the oven section, and then dispenses it to the customers. Each pizzas are fully prepared. The system that manages it goes through the first in, first out process and manages that inventory, and also logs and date timestamps every pizza that's loaded and manages the lifespan of that pizza when it does that. And it'll shut down sales if there's any issues with those. They order at that touch screen, that hot and cold section it moves in between, and then deliver it out. All pizzas, they're prepared right now outside of Chicago at a facility that are handmade. It's a USDA FDA approved facility, and then they're shipped frozen to our licensees and markets, and then from that they're transferred to the machines and refrigerated vehicles. We are UL approved on each of our machines, and then there's a maintenance program for pest control and everything else that goes through that. We do have cameras that are installed in all of our refrigerated section, our oven section, and then on our outdoor machines on the front of the machine as well, so you can see what's happening in all parts of the machine. We do have 7 varieties of pizza in our machine, and we have these machines now, I think, in 9 states, growing quickly, and probably will open another 20 to 30 machines at least by the end of the year in the US. Let's see, let's start this video.
Travis, could you just explain a little bit about what we're seeing here on the screen, because we aren't able
You're
to
not
hear
getting
the
any
sound.
audio? You're not getting any audio at all?
No, we don't have the audio for the video, even though we can see it very clearly.
With the oven and monitor below it that controls all the machinery will be shown next, as you'll scroll down to that. We have our chief operating officer talking over this that was showing everybody. There's a clamp there that will insert the pizzas into the oven and then pull it out. And there's an oven door slot in the back. And then as he pans down, you'll see the mouse and keyboard that run the computer system, as well as the computer system, the drivers and communication systems that tie into the mobile network. This is the process of the pizza getting ordered. So the clamps go up, pulls out a pizza from the top, pull it down to the midpoint to the slot over to the oven section, and then the belt will slide it across. And then an arm pushes it the final way because the belt doesn't go all the way through. And then the presser pushes it. Arms will come down with a press and clip into the top of the box and open it up. And then it inserts the bottom box and the pizza into the oven. And then it lifts that pizza out with some fingers and cooks it with a forced air convection. And then it cooks about 90 seconds to 2 minutes, and then pulls it out and then inserts it out to the customer at the back end. And the oven, then we have a full cycle where the customer then has the pizza. Now on the front of the machine, there's a 32-inch touchscreen on the front with a hand sanitizer on the right. This is an ATM style built in. The top is the vents where the ambient air comes out around the computer area, and also some air from the oven section as it exhausts out. There's no burning vapor, so it's just self-venting. As he scrolls down, you'll see the touch screen. So customers will touch that screen to start. 8 different varieties. He's going to go through the kind of the process to order a pizza. So it gives you all the options. If the pizzas aren't available in the machine, it'll show the pizzas, but it'll show them grayed out, so they're not available. Customers can order the pizza by just clicking on it, and they can get it in 2 varieties, either cold or hot. The cold, it'll skip the oven cycle and distribute it to them, and they can take it home and cook it with instructions on top of the box. If they choose the hot version, it'll start the cycle where, as we saw before, the pizza will be selected and moved across to that oven section. You can add multiple pizzas to this process. So if you want more than one, customers can order 1 or 2 or 3 or however many they'd like to order. They can also enter a coupon code if they want to, enter something that we may have sent out or something else. So when they order that, it'll discount it off their total. And then as they do that, it'll add everything up, and then they can continue out and pay. The other thing we like about this payment system too is that it's a touchless payment system. So it's a tap to pay. If they can't get the tap to work, then it does have an insert on their card. It's directed for that. Once they've done that, then the pizza will start in the cooking process. We also have individually wrapped biodegradable knife for customers to cut the pizza and share it if they would like. Also a hand sanitizer on the right, and then receipt option if it's a printed receipt is requested. The other thing that's on the front of the machine, you'll see the slot where the pizzas will come out. And then we also have a sticker on the left that is our customer service number. That's also, you know, has an email and a 1-800 number on it. The bottom, that vent is for fresh air intake, just for the computer system. So as it pulls air through, it'll cool that computer system down as well. And here's our 1-800 number. So we deal with all customer issues, whether they be pizza quality or anything else they would like to talk about, and we use that to kind of manage that through the system, and we can log in and see that customer live or deal with them afterwards as well. That is the system. Sorry you couldn't hear our ops guys talk about the system through itself. Hopefully I did a good job explaining it as we went through, and I appreciate your time. Dan, can you hear me?
Yes, we can now. I think it went
Okay.
out for just a moment, but did you have any other slides or was that it?
That's it.
That's it. Okay, so we have two quick questions that we're going to go through before we hand it over to Chris. So from our chat, the question is, are the Pizza Forno machines all NAMA certified, NAMA?
The ones going to California are NAMA certified, and then all future machines will be NAMA certified as well.
Okay. Excellent. And also there was a question that, is the pizza baked in the box or is it removed, baked, and then replaced back into the original box?
It is baked in the box.
Okay. All right, so we will hold the rest of the questions now until the Q&A at the end of the other two presentations. So with that, Chris, Rupert, I would like for you to go ahead and start sharing your slides if available, and we will turn it over to you.
Fantastic. Let me just pull this up. Let's see, can everybody see my screen? Ah, fantastic. And hopefully you can see me too. Awesome. Yes, my name is Chris Rupert. I am the Food Policy and Innovation Manager at Compass North America. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about some perspectives, some of the evaluation methods we use for evaluating new food technologies in the contract food service space. So getting started, wanted to talk a little bit about Compass. It may be a company, it may be a brand that you are unfamiliar with, but chances are you've eaten at one, if not several, of our locations throughout your life. We are the world's largest contract food service provider. We play in a lot of spaces, corporate cafes, K-12 schools, higher education, colleges, universities, hospitals. That's patient food, employee food, visitor food, senior care facilities, arenas, event spaces, convention centers. We do operate some restaurants, some fine dining restaurants, and then special events and catering. So the Grammys, that's us. The Oscars, that's Compass Food as well. So we do play in a lot of spaces. Focusing in on the North American division where I work, we have over 280,000 associates. I think now we're closer to 300,000, and over $20 billion in revenues last year, and that is continuing to grow. So at Compass, we really do value new technologies and innovations, so much so that we have two kind of sectors, our term for divisions, who are really solely dedicated to technologies and innovations. One of those is Compass Digital. They're really focused on the software side of things. So finding apps, developing in-house apps, and kind of integrating them into the Compass workflow. And then we've got Envision Group, which more deals with the hardware side of things. So the actual brick and mortar new technology that you would see in a food service space. And they both work fairly similarly, almost like a bit of a startup incubator. They'll go out, identify new solutions. We get a lot of new solutions from just word of mouth. We'll hear from our chefs, things that they've just heard from fellow chefs that intrigue them. We'll have folks from the Compass Digital team from the Envision Group go out to trade shows, the NRA show, the NAMA show. And when they find innovations, technologies that they think will be a good fit for Compass, they'll start to kind of build out use cases, build out the business case, figure out whether or not it would be a good fit for Compass locations. At that point, if the financials are looking good, I'll be brought in for QA review, and I'll talk a little bit about that whole QA review process in some later slides. Fingers crossed, they get through the QA review process. We'll then work at finding some appropriate locations that would be a good fit for the type of technology, roll into the pilot phase. And a pilot could be anything from 1 unit, it could be 20 units, it could be 3 months, it could be a year and a half, just depending on the type of technology we're working with. And then, should we meet our pilot success criteria, we'll move on through to the contracting phase, at which point it'll kind of be available for all of the Compass portfolio. So I don't want to dig in on one specific type of technology at the moment, or one category of technology, but in general, I would say Compass, in our new technology portfolio, we've probably got around, 50, 60 different offerings, of which probably 20 to 30 are in either active pilot or deployment. But if you could summarize all of these technologies, put them into some buckets, I would use these 6, starting off beverage. This is anything from your tried and true bean to cup machine that I think everybody's pretty familiar with, to your more innovative devices, stuff like boba machines, smoothie machines, fresh juice machines, getting more into the kind of innovative space. Next up, we've got sort of your prepackaged reheating machines, very similar to the machine that Travis just showed, something where you would have prepackaged items that are held cold, transferred over to a reheating unit, and through a microwave oven, a convection oven, an IR oven, reheated and then provided to the customer. Getting more complicated, we have cooking and reheating machines with some sort of packaging component. So this could be a machine that, say, has a hopper of burgers or a hopper of mixed greens, and based on some sort of customer preference, it could dispense various mix-ins to a salad, various toppings to a burger, do some sort of cooking, reheating, processing, and then package that up in a new package and hand that off to the customer. Next up, I would say cobots. Another thing we're really starting to see grow, at least in the Compass world. This is not necessarily something like the pizza forno machine where it's an all-in-one solution, soup to nuts. This is something that would operate more in a back-of-the-house capacity. So it would assist a Compass associate with their day-to-day tasks. Maybe it could dispense or portion out ingredients. Maybe it's cooking, frying something, generally taking over a small portion of the day-to-day tasks of an associate, but still involves a lot of interaction and work to be provided by the associate. So they may take cooked ingredients and would be responsible for expediting them, garnishing them, plating them, packaging, labeling, handing off to the customer. So this would, again, be something that would be fully attended, more of a back-of-the-house solution. Next up, gardening, hydroponics, a little bit out of left field there, but we are starting to see a lot of requests from units on this kind of technology. Oftentimes it's in sort of a bookshelf, bookcase kind of form factor, something that allows a location to grow limited quantities of herbs, limited quantities of produce on site that are usually processed, harvested, washed, and everything on site and used in that kitchen for the resident population there. And last up, I would say delivery. So this could be an autonomous delivery system, semi-autonomous delivery system, something where to-go orders could get loaded up in some sort of wheeled robot, wheeled around a corporate office, wheeled around a college campus to see a final drop-off point. If anybody was at the AFTO conference in Norfolk earlier this year, I think we had a couple of those on display. So talking a little bit about the QA review process and what we like to do at Compass, we really like to do a thorough vetting of these new technologies as they are moving into the evaluation and pilot stage. And on the food safety QA side of things, we really like to look at certifications, documentation, SOPs, SSOPs, and chemicals and chemical compatibility. So on the certification side of things, we love to see our ANSI certificates. It's great to see a NAMA certification. It's great to see an NSF certification. Really helps with having a good starting point in our evaluations, and definitely helps with further regulatory approval down the line. Additionally, we do look for some electrical certifications. So that could be UL, TUV, other certifications from your NRTLs, just to really ensure our OSHA team, our workplace safety team, that the equipment is designed with workplace safety and electrical safety in mind. So once we evaluate these certificates, we take a look at the documentation, and we really want to make sure that it is easy to access and easy to execute. So I like to see documentation built, broken down into simple steps. The last thing we want some hourly associate to have to do is to look through 50 pages, 100 pages of documentation to figure out how to tear down and clean some novel new piece of technology. So if we can distill stuff down into bullet points, if we can distill stuff down into 30-second, 2-minute videos that you can access from a QR code on your phone, that's even better. Additionally, we just look at the overall time that is involved in the operation and the sanitation of these machines. They're often advertised as labor savers, time savers, and from a food production standpoint, that could very well be true. A lot of these machines can really pump out a lot of good food, but if it takes an hour to disassemble the machine at the end of the day, another hour to clean it, another hour to put it back together, some of those operational efficiencies, unfortunately, can kind of go up in smoke if you factor in that end of day task. So you really have to look at the big picture from that kind of perspective. On the SSOP, the sanitation, the chemical side of things, we really like to partner with our contracted chemical provider that for Compass is Diversey, and have them take a look at the chemicals, the chemistry that is suggested by some of these manufacturers, and look at the compatibility between the chemistry, the suggested chemistry, the finishes, the metals that may be making up these novel pieces of technology. And we like to oftentimes find equivalent chemicals that can be sourced through Diversey. Some of these manufacturers, they'll suggest kind of one-off, potentially hard to procure cleaners, sanitizers, and the like. And if we can source an equivalent chemistry, an equivalent chemical through, in this case, Diversey, and really remove a hurdle for our operators, just have them, hey, you're already ordering detergent, you're already ordering sanitizer from Diversey, here's just one more chemical to use for this novel piece of equipment. It really kind of removes a hurdle to success for operating these machines. And all throughout this process, we're doing testing. So a lot of these new pieces of equipment, they may not have a lot of data. They may not have a lot of validation that shows whether or not they can be successfully cleaned. And we're always happy to come in and assist with that testing. So we could perform microbiological testing, do some swabbing, send it off to a lab for plating. Compass, we partner with Mariu for our contract sciences. We'll do ATP testing, again, looking at pre and post sanitation ATP levels, looking at allergens, both general protein swabs. I've got a little picture of the AllerSnap down in the corner there, as well as protein-specific lateral flow device tests, really just to get a good idea as to whether or not these machines can successfully be, cleaned and sanitized. Additionally, we like to take a look at the quality. What we found is that our QA team oftentimes are some of the first Compass representatives to really get an in-depth look at some of these machines. So it's important to kind of put your quality hat on and think about where these machines may be launched, who the intended audience may be, and have some perspective as to whether or not the output of the machine will meet the overall quality expectations of the customer. So after we, get their QA review, start up a pilot, we get regulatory approval, of course. One thing that we really find is critical is to have follow-ups throughout the pilot phase. So we like to have somebody from the QA team, myself or somebody else on our team, down at the unit once, if not twice or three times throughout the pilot process to really get a idea of the operational feedback. Are there any pain points? Are there any barriers to success that we are seeing as this equipment is deployed over the length of a pilot? Is the quality good enough? Are customers happy with the product? Are they coming back? Do we have repeat customers? One thing I'm always interested to see is what hidden unexpected issues pop up. As with any equipment, once you put it in the hands of an operator, it'll be a little bit of the Wild West. I'm sure everybody on this call has walked into a food service establishment and seen some equipment that may be used in some unexpected manners, may be handled a little rougher, a little tougher than originally expected. So we like to see and monitor the wear and tear of a machine throughout a pilot. And we can kind of use those lessons to either request for a company to make a portion of the equipment more durable, or perhaps it's a portion of the machine that needs to be replaced more often, something that needs to be added into a PM, a preventative maintenance schedule. It's just, we found that it's really important to have multiple follow-ups throughout a pilot phase. And that leads me to the importance of educating and partnering with manufacturers. We have found that a lot of these potential partners, a lot of the manufacturers of these new food technologies are startups. So small teams, very agile, new to the food game, a lot of times have brilliant expertise with engineering, with computer science, with electrical design, maybe don't always have the expertise from a food safety perspective that you would see with a older, more traditional food company. So at Compass, we find that it's great to really partner with some of these companies and try to lend the food safety expertise that we have. And that could be anything from chemicals, recommending chemicals, leaning on our partners at Diversity to recommend some suggested chemicals, figuring out appropriate sanitation processes. There are, I will say, a handful of these companies that I've had to explain the difference between cleaning and sanitizing to, and why it's important to have both cleaning and sanitizing for some of these machines. So teaching, sometimes basic food safety skills, and sharing data. As I mentioned a couple slides ago, we do a lot of internal testing. We'll do ATP testing, we'll do micro testing, we'll do allergen testing, and we want to share all of that data with these startups, with these clients, with these new manufacturers, for them to take back to the drawing board and help create better, equipments, better devices in the future. And what we really found is that, better partnerships, stronger partnerships lead to better evolutions of new technology. So, if we can, again, partner with these companies, lend our expertise, make suggestions in good faith. A lot of these companies will take this to heart and improve their technologies based on our our suggestions. We've had companies that have improved the cold holding capabilities of their equipment, the finishes, the materials, the cleanability of their equipment, all because we were able to kind of sit down with them, share the data we generated, and really from scratch kind of walk through the design, the operations of this equipment from a person with their food safety hat on. So I would be remiss if I didn't talk a little bit about my CFP issue. A couple months ago at this year's Conference for Food Protection, I submitted an issue around the bulk packaging of TCS foods within a vending machine. As I mentioned, I think at the top of my presentation, we are starting to see more and more new food technologies that do packaging of TCS foods within a vending machine. And what we have found is that jurisdiction to jurisdiction, there's varied interpretation of what is packaging, what is, the handling of TCS foods. Some locations require variances, some locations don't require variances, some locations straight up prohibit any machines handling bulk TCS foods. And along with this varied interpretation, we found that there's limited guidance for industry as well as food manufacturers, contract food service providers, and regulatory folks within the food code. So the goal of this CFP committee that was formed is to kind of gather, review the technology that's out there, review the standards that these technologies can be certified to, look at how they're currently regulated, and if the committee deems necessary, develop some guidance around these more novel, more advanced vending machines for the manufacturers, the engineers, for the contract food service providers who have to go in and onboard and vet these pieces of equipment, for regulators who have to go out and inspect and verify and approve these technologies that sometimes just show up in a food service establishment. So more to come on this. The committee's being formed as we speak, and we'll have more information on that. I know this isn't a CFP call, but I'd be, again, remiss if I didn't mention it. So that's all I've got for the moment. My contact's there. Always happy to chat with anybody who's got any future questions, and I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Chris. That was informative, and I appreciate you bringing up the CFP issue very much. We're looking for great things to come out of that committee. So now we are going to welcome our third panelist for today, Derek DeLand of NSF. Derek, you're up, and we're going to turn it over to you.
All right, let's see if we can get my screen sharing going.
We're seeing your view, not the presentation view. Is that
there it goes. New computer. Sometimes I have to click buttons more than once, it seems like. I don't know. As I told you before, I got a new computer like 2 days ago, and so I'm still feeling it out. So okay, thanks, Deanna. I was approached actually for the AFTO meeting, as well as this, to kind of discuss a little bit about how the American national standards, the NSF standards, handle kind of this innovation boom, new technology, these things that are coming out. How are we handling that as it relates to food equipment within the standards, as well as kind of the evaluations, the certifications that go along with those standards. And along those same lines as well, to potentially tie in a kind of brief 10,000-foot view of kind of an evaluation 101, right? Some things that maybe regulators could look at and keep in mind is in the circumstances where perhaps they have to evaluate some of this equipment and approve it on their own, that type of thing. So I guess I should back up very briefly and introduce myself. Again, Derek DeLand with NSF. I'm in our government affairs team. I'm a former regulator by training and trade for about 20 years before I came to NSF, and they hired me to be the point of contact for you folks, right? So state and local regulators predominantly, a little bit at the Fed level, but for questions on standards and certifications and whatever it may be, wherever we can help, I'm your guy. Speak the same language, seen the same things, know the pain points a little bit, all that kind of stuff. So feel free to reach out anytime on this or any other matter for all that matters. How has NSF's approach changed with innovation? I get this question actually a decent amount as I'm out at different conferences meeting with state folks. And the simplest answer is it hasn't. We haven't developed any new standards necessarily related to kind of the innovative technology. There's a little bit of a tweak on one I'll get to a little bit later. But by and large, we still look at equipment through that same lens, through those existing standards. But perhaps, of course, because there's some tech-enabled piece or some sort of other thing going on, there are some additional components we maybe have to look at. But most of them always kind of still fall within one of the 21 standards that we have, right? Whether there's a refrigeration piece or it's just a hygienic design piece or whatever it is, we still kind of look at it through that lens. And it doesn't matter if it's a kind of new approach to, refrigeration systems like this, or potentially some very, kind of novel and promising approaches to mobile food. Of course, none of these have actually been proposed to us or anything of the sort. But I did kind of intentionally pick these pictures a little bit because they speak to a little bit of the problem or the challenges, let's say, that we have with some of the tech stuff. And Chris spoke to some of this just a little while ago, is that often what we're seeing is existing technologies in some aspect that are being repurposed and then put forward into the food equipment sphere. Okay. I think something like very simple, like robotic arms. They have been used in the automotive industry for decades, but now all of a sudden people say, hey, that's a pretty cool idea. Let's move this into the kitchen, without necessarily having all of that kind of food safety background when it comes to design and safe materials and all of that kind of stuff. So, with our kind of major challenges are, as Chris spoke to, right? We have these entrepreneurs, engineers, all of these folks that can bring that manufacturing knowledge, but maybe not the food safety knowledge. And also in today's day and age, internet and everything else, it's, you have crowdsource funding, other people wanting to get into the investment game a little bit. So it's sometimes a little bit easier for startups to get going. And the problem is, if they take this concept, it seems like a great idea, and they get further and further down the path before they engage with food safety folks, they run the risk of then having to work that whole design backwards to get something that's going to be compliant, that's going to be safe, and that type of stuff. So some of the things that we're seeing are that idea that, they're repurposing some things and re-engineering it, and then they have to kind of reverse engineer theirs and start over again a little bit with some of the food safety aspects in mind. The way we kind of overcome this, the way we're trying to meet this, is continue to educate these folks, whether it's at food equipment shows or other places, on the standards, what's in the standards, getting them to rely on them, lean into them, read them, understand them. And so that's kind of the education piece. And then the other piece is, of course, certification, right? That allows, for us to kind of do that review. All that kind of stuff is done up front, takes the burden off of regulators to do it. It helps manufacturers know that their stuff is going to be compliant, it's going to be accepted, and all of those kind of benefits, and really the purpose behind the certification to kind of grease the wheels of those approvals and ensuring food safety and that type of thing, and taking the risk off the regulators, of course, for reviewing it. So when it comes to actually evaluating things, how are we doing it? Really, kind of as I mentioned before, we look at it through this same lens. So the approach generally is to break it down and simplify it, right? Just like almost every other problem that you have. You take it one little piece at a time. So you got to kind of break the piece down. What is it doing? Is it just an arm that's flipping a burger? Or handling, non-TCS ingredients? Is there a freezer and refrigeration component? Is there conveyor belts? All these other kind of things. So you kind of look at all the different components of what it's doing. And I should back up with that concept. When we certify some of these systems that we've seen, they are whole entire systems. So you could have something, and we have seen these, where there's a freezer and a hopper where either fries or frozen nuggets go in. They're then dropped into deep fryers. They're then put into hot holding. So if that whole system is one, kind of model, we do certify that whole thing. So we got to look at all those different parts, right? So we're then looking at what standards apply, right? Is it the refrigeration standard, the cooking and hot holding standard, so on and so forth. And then what are the zones and the zone related requirements, which I'll touch on some of those in the coming slides, because that's kind of how the standards are broken down. But as it says here in bold here at the bottom, really the bottom line is we can apply that same design, materials, performance requirements, which are in every single standard to every single piece that we see right now. And as a side note, for any of you out there that want them, NSF standards are free for regulators. If you want PDF copies, you can certainly reach out to me. We want to put them in your hands, whether you use them as guides for trying to doing your own reviews or whatever the case is. We're happy to provide those and make sure that you have those in your arsenal if you need them. So kind of getting to this concept of like a review or an evaluation 101, this high level concept. So within the standards, they're really broken down within these zones, which I talked about. The food zone is essentially your food contact materials area. There's a little other areas that fit that criteria as well, but that's really what we're talking about. Splash zones, I think everybody kind of understands. A non-food zone would be something like the bottom side of equipment, stuff like that. That's really not subject to splash too much, but there are some cleanability issues that you want, whether it's for dust and other things, as well as openings. Now, the other zone I didn't put on here is the unexposed non-food zone. And what that is are kind of the cavities inside of a machine where maybe the compressor is or something for a refrigerator, or it might even be something that Travis was talking about, like where the computers are stored and all that, right? There's not a ton of requirements that go in there, but there are in terms of, pest, harborage or any of those kind of pest entry things, right? There are criteria that do go into that as part of that evaluation. But when it comes to real kind of the risk evaluation of a piece of equipment, the kind of these big three at the top are really, I guess I would say kind of the primary pieces that if you were tasked with evaluating some new piece of equipment, that would be the kind of key pieces to look at. So when it comes to food zones, food contact areas, they need to be accessible, cleanable, and all that without tools, right? So they should unclip, snap apart, be able to put back together without somebody having to go through a toolbox, which is buried in the back of some maintenance closet, which doesn't even have the right tools, and all of those kind of issues, right? The radius requirement is another one. The food code says some things like it needs to be easily cleanable, but what does that mean? And how do you measure that? And I know from experience, it's hard enough to get two inspectors or plan reviewers in the same health department to agree with one another, much less two separate health departments or health departments from two separate states, right? It's this kind of problem with non-specifics in the code, where that's where the standards kind of have a nice leg up on it, right? Because it's very specific, measurable outcomes. So radius, when we're talking about a two-plane intersection, it's required to have an 1/8 of an inch curve or at least 135-degree bend, right? Very specific, measurable things that you can rely on. And there's, of course, tons of other requirements in the standard as well, but those are some key points to look at as far as these food zones and what the standards deem as being a cleanable kind of intersection of planes. And then the other element is fasteners are not allowed. So even if it's the backside of a pop rivet or anything like that in a food zone, not allowed whatsoever because of the cleanability issues, that kind of thing. Those are some major points I think to look at when you're looking at some of these pieces of equipment. Now, the other element is, as I mentioned, right, there's design, there's materials, and there's performance. So on the material side, you can see this is all pretty much all the same across the board, except for the toxicity issues related to your food contact materials. And this is where, I guess, in my opinion, and yes, I work for NSF, I get it, but as a former kind of public health professional thinking about this is really where the standards kind of shine because, and the certifications, because we have the ability to get material formulations for every food contact material and vet them against the standards and the standards, which is standard 51 for materials, but it gets into, there's a lot of 21 CFR, references in there, Food Drug Cosmetic Act references in there. So we have a team of toxicologists that can get these formulation reviews on the materials and compare them to those things to find out, are they GRAS? Are they, safe for intended use or indirect food additives or whatever the criteria is in that standard that would allow those, we can do all that on the front end. I've yet to see a health department or talk to anybody in my 20 some odd years doing this now that has that kind of capability at a health department level, right? So although it's very difficult for health departments to do, again, that's kind of what we're looking at in terms of reviewing and approving those food contact materials as part of that certification. So, and then the last thing just on performance, right? And this really depends on the piece of equipment. We do have temp holding requirements, hot and cold. We have recovery and lockout mechanisms for refrigeration. These are largely related to vending machines for one, or which is something similar would be the ones in unattended food operations or where, it's these micro market type things. So often these have lockouts on them. So it's a test with doors open for 15 minutes, to simulate it being loaded and serviced. It's shut. If it doesn't recover down to 41 or below within a certain time frame, the machine should shut off or the door should lock out so it can no longer be accessible. Those are the types of testing that go on with a lot of these things. Temperature accuracy, clean in place is pretty straightforward. And then there are some actual performance testing for materials when it gets into corrosion resistance, coatings, things of that nature. Going to vending machines here briefly, since I kind of touched on it with the lockouts and stuff like that and the temperature requirements. And that's really, vending machines is where we're really seeing a lot of the tech innovation, right? A lot of the stuff that's going on. This slide is just kind of repetitive of what Chris talked about, right? So the existing food code language is here. And it talks about basically you need to vend from the package that comes from the licensed establishment, the commissary, whatever it is, right? It shouldn't be, and if you go back and you read through the annex, as far as the public health reasons, a lot of it has to do with the fact that they don't want people at vending machine locations opening up packages and putting in ingredients and doing all this manual handling of food and all this kind of stuff because of the inherent risks for contamination and so on. So as I think I kind of mentioned before, but I'll reiterate with this a little bit, is, the standards are developed to be aligned with the food code. When the standards are written, we have folks just like you, we have regulators at the table developing that language, state, local regulators, FDA, they're all there to develop the language around this. And so overwhelmingly, the standards are in alignment with the food code. The one thing that has changed is along these vending lines. So standard 25, which is our vending standard, was changed to deal with some of the issues Chris was talking about, right? So, given the annex issues the issues in the annex that we're talking about with opening product and so on, how do you look at a machine from a food safety aspect that is getting a package from a commissary or licensed place? It's put in the machine is shut, and then the machine does the unpackaging, prepping, and repackaging and sends it out. So it's taking that food handling risk out of the equation. And so what our standards joint committee did, and again, in lockstep with regulators and folks at the table discussing these things, is kind of repurposed this concept. And of course, this is an overwhelmingly wordy sentence, but this has to do with the joint committee of manufacturers and end users and regulators at the table, all trying to come to an agreement on one sentence or couple sentences. And you come up with this kind of ridiculous long run-on thing here. But what this does is it opens the door to allow for that type of operation. And so we have been then certifying some of those type of machines. And then, of course, as Chris mentioned with the CFP issue that came up, he brought it up there because it's very much an issue. These are out there. Some states are saying, nope, food code says you can't do it. We're not allowing it. Some do it with a variance. Some aren't even looking at them or just assume they're okay, depending if there's somebody's certification mark or whatever may be going on them. So it's kind of all over the map. So hopefully this committee will be able to actually revise some of this language, come back with something new for the food code that works for the regulators, works for where the industry is going, and kind of have those the regulations keep up with tech and the new way of doing things that's out there. One last thing I kind of want to touch on here a little bit briefly as far as is field labeling, because I do get this question a fair amount from regulators where somebody will propose something or all of a sudden it just shows up in a restaurant or something. And they look at it and they go, what do I do with this thing? Right? It's got all sorts of weird moving parts and they're just kind of overwhelmed by looking at it. We do have a service that we can do for field labeling. I should back this up a hair and say it's not certification, because we're looking at things in the field. We can't necessarily do the same type of stuff that we would do as part of certification, which that certification includes doing audits of the manufacturing facilities, right? These field evaluations, these field labelings are one-off circumstance of one piece in one location. So even if we, somebody, as it mentions here, it's a potential solution for equipment that isn't certified and for prototype stuff, right? So this is where this has kind of come up in the past is tech-enabled stuff. It's a prototype. They're not mass producing it yet. So they want to make 10 of them and put them in different spots across the US or whatever it is, a trial balloon to see how they go. When we do those field evaluations, it's one for each one. So just doing one does not necessarily mean that it covers all the other ones. So it's done in the field per installation. And when we do that, there is a label that like looks like this that gets put on there. It's not a certification mark that you're accustomed to seeing, right? Not the regular foil mark or the circle that's in a data plate. But what this sticker also has is a number on there that's linked to a report. That report goes to the owner, that report goes to the health department, and the health department then can read that to say, okay, here's what this evaluation says, here's where there were nonconformities, we want you to fix these 3, or we want you to fix all of these, or whatever, and they can kind of work with the manufacturers and so on to kind of hammer out some of those details, and we can do follow-up, evaluations and all that kind of stuff if corrective actions are made. So sometimes that is a little bit of a help for health department folks that feel like maybe they're in a bind and they're not real comfortable with approving a piece without maybe somebody that's a little more used to looking at food equipment in a conventional sense to have another set of eyes on. Just wanted to bring that up because under this kind of tech-enabled world and these things that are going on, and especially the propensity for restaurant owners to all of a sudden just buy something and put it in without even getting a plan review on it first, these are some things that may be able to help you folks out. So as I'm nearing the end again, this is the general concept, right? I talked about these arms in the auto industry being used forever. Clearly what you see on the left is not something that would be suitable for a food service, right? It's got all the hoses and exposed, cavities and all sorts of things. But as then it goes through, more of a review and a refinement and with an eye towards food safety, you get something closer to what you see kind of here on the right-hand side, which is a much more cleaner, sanitary kind of design. And I think that's it for me. I don't know. Hopefully I did pretty good on time. I know that was kind of rapid fire, Deanna. I hope we're good on time. And as far as I'm concerned, I think we can open it up to, whatever questions or however you want to proceed. I'll go ahead and stop sharing now. Okay.
That was perfect. All 3 of you ended exactly on time. So this is just flowing smoothly. And now we're turning the show over to all of you on the call. So you can either post your questions in the chat or you can raise your hand and we will call on you. I have a couple of lingering questions from the presentations that have already been done as they were being presented. So Travis, we have a question for you. Is the slot continuously open where the pizza comes out, or does it just open when the pizza is ready?
The current one is open, and the NAMA requirements are us to put a closure on that. And so all future machines will have a closure on the front of that. We've ran into that with, that's the new machines going to California.
Okay. And I think the next question was very like-minded in that train of thought is, how are pests excluded from the machines?
The refrigerated section is completely sealed except for the door that opens and closes to go to the oven section where the pizzas are held full time. The rest are excluded with small screens to minimize size, and then there's a pest control service as well.
Okay. And talk a little bit about the alarm for temperature failures.
If there is a temperature failure on the machine, there's a battery backup on the computer system in case there's a power outage or something else. that will alert not only the owners, but the Pizza Forno team as well, and let them know there's a power outage on the machine to monitor it. If that power outage or the temperature on the machine in the refrigerated section goes too high, it will lock down all sales until somebody shows up and removes that lockout, fixes the issue, and changes the product.
Okay, and we had one other question, Travis. The machines that you have, are they UL approved?
Yes.
Okay. In the chat, I also see a comment about Chris's presentation. And Chris, you got some kudos. Great point on the cleaning protocols and how necessary those are for these pieces of equipment that folks may or may not be familiar with. All right.
Appreciate the kudos. Yeah, we see a lot of sometimes novel cleaning processes. A lot of these pieces of equipment have some sort of CIP, some sort of self-cleaning step that's involved in the sanitation process. And yeah, figuring out exactly how they work, validating them is something that we really find to be a key part of the onboarding process.
All right, thank you. I don't have any hands up at the moment. Are there any other questions? I mean, this is your opportunity. We've got 3 amazing experts here on the call, and we want to hear what outstanding questions you have after their presentations.
We dazzled them all into silence, Deanna.
I think we did. I mean, y'all were so full of information that it's like, wow, we have a lot to process. Derek, I think, yeah, y'all just did such a bang up job that people don't have any questions. I have some comments that thinks this was interesting and helpful. So yeah, y'all have done your jobs well today.
That or we
So
put them all to sleep, and we're going to end the meeting and they're not going to realize it for another half hour.
All right, well, going once. Okay, we have a new question here in the chat. So Travis, how do you ensure the proper reheating temperatures for the pizzas?
Reheating, as in if they take it cold and take it home. Instructions are on the box. All of the products on the pizza are fully cooked. So it's really reheating and rewarming it up. So as long as they follow the instructions, it'll do that. In the machine, the oven section and time are measured by the computer as well, and it's tracked through that process. And there's it measures and makes sure that that pizza is following that process as it goes through it. And if it's not, it'll lock it out and send an alert.
All right, thank you. Yes, we will send out a link to the recording of today's presentations. So for that question, you will be getting the recording once it's available through Zoom, along with the evaluation to fill out for today's session. Again, this session was created in response to your feedback. So please give us more feedback on what you want to hear about, and we will put together what we can on the information that is requested. So if I don't see any more questions in the chat, I'm going to give you back a whole 13 minutes in the day. Everybody is saying thank you for the presentations. So great job. All right.
Thanks, Deanna.
All right. So with
Thanks,
all
Deanna.
the
Appreciate you guys' time.
Thank you.
attendees, we'll be in touch with the evaluations, and thank you again to our amazing panelists. You guys did a fantastic job.
Take care.
Have a great rest of your day.
You
Thank
too.
you.
Bye-bye.